Hello, everybody. Well, the 2025 local elections have really delivered on what many people out there were hoping for, which is a political revolution, because that is exactly what we are witnessing with the rise of Nigel Farage and the Reform Party and the collapse of not just Keir Starmer's Labour government, but also the Conservative Party, the Uniparty. And what I want to talk about in this video is what I'm noticing in the results, the key trends, and the implications for the next 4 or 5 years in British politics as we head towards that massive 2029 general election. Now, the first thing to say, as I've been saying for some time, is that Reform have absolutely delivered on that promise. They've won the Runcorn and Helsby by-election. That, of course, is, according to the Times newspaper today, Labour's 49th safest seat in the country, meaning there are dozens and dozens of more Labour-held seats that look a lot like Runcorn and Helsby, which Nigel Farage and Reform could potentially win in the future. In fact, I've long argued that the key pieces of territory for Farage and Reform run from the northeast of England down through the Midlands, across northern England into Wales. That's where they're going to do damage against the Labour Party, while coming down the east flank of England, that's where they're going to hit the Tories into Kent and Essex and beyond. So what we're seeing at these elections is Farage and Reform really picking up support in areas where people previously voted for the UK Independence Party, then voted for Brexit, then voted for the Brexit Party, often voted for Boris Johnson in 2019. But all of that churn and change has now allowed Farage and Reform to really break through in those areas and score some really impressive results. As I'm talking to you today, a few hours after the local elections, Reform has already taken, aside from Runcorn and Helsby, the mayoral election in Lincolnshire. Andrea Jenkins has been elected. They've won the Lincolnshire County Council, Staffordshire, Lancashire, and Durham. That's giving Nigel Farage those local foundations that he really needs and that Reform really need in order to use them as a stepping stone into causing much more damage at future national general elections. Now, the Labour Party, on average, where in areas that it's also contested 4 years ago, the Labour Party's vote is down on average by 9 points. That's pretty consistent with what we're seeing in the national polls. The Tories, compared to 2021, when they were doing pretty well under Boris Johnson, they're down 25 points on average. There is no evidence that the Conservatives are recovering. There is no evidence that Kemi Badenoch is turning around the Titanic. If anything, the Conservatives are in freefall. They're in a cul-de-sac, and there is no way out of that cul-de-sac given what Farage and Reform are now doing. In fact, if you look at where Reform have been most successful, they've basically been hitting Labour in lots of those northern areas, but they've also been smashing the Conservatives in some of those traditional Conservative Party areas. That's what's giving Farage the breadth. That's what's giving him the cross-class coalition of working-class voters in Labour areas, more middle-class voters in Conservative areas. It's giving him the reach that he needs in order to be competitive under a first-past-the-post system. Now, look, all of this has led Westminster today to ask the obvious question, well, how on earth do you respond to the rise of Reform and Nigel Farage? What are you going to do about this? Well, ask yourself first the question, why are people voting for Reform? Why are all these people actually out there ticking the box next to Reform? I've shown this in our politics newsletter. We've done the surveys of Reform voters, the most comprehensive surveys to date. Reason number one, lower end mass uncontrolled immigration. Reason number two, stop the boats, fix the borders. And that's important because if you disentangle those two, they're the top two issues. Most pollsters don't do that. They just package it all up into immigration and they say, well, immigration number one, economy number two. Misleading. Reform voters want to lower legal migration and then fix the borders. Then they want to reduce the cost of living crisis. So this is giving Farage enormous strength. And the other thing about this, which I think is interesting, very few people have picked up on this, none of the fundamentals that are driving the Reform Party vote are actually going to change between today and 2029. I mean, ask yourself a question. Is Labour's plan going to work in stopping the small boats and fixing the borders? No. Is Westminster going to dramatically reduce levels of net migration into this country? No. Is the system actually going to stop being a two-tier legal judicial system that prioritises minorities at the expense of the tax-paying hard-working majority? No. Is the cost of living going to come down as economic growth increases and the country becomes more productive and innovative? No. Is Labour going to fully give up on its net zero ambitions? No. And is anybody in Westminster actually going to do what we need to do in order to deport illegal migrants and foreign criminals from our country, namely by leaving the European Convention on Human Rights, or the ECHR? No. So none of the fundamentals that are actually driving Reform's revolt are going to change. Farage is more experienced than he's been at any point in his career. Everybody in the country knows who he is. And now he's got that mass membership party, 220, 230,000 members, nicely distributed across different parts of the country. And I got to be honest with you, I really think this is it. I think this movement is going to actually deliver enormous change at elections going forward. I think the Tories are done. I really do think it's the end of the Conservative Party. I think we are witnessing the strange death of the Conservative Party. I don't see any way back. Even if Kemi Badenoch is replaced by somebody like Robert Jenrick, the Conservative Parliamentary Party is way too liberal for the average Conservative Party voter and for the average voter in this country. There's no way the Tory Parliamentary Party would ever allow Robert Jenrick to do what he wants to do, or he says he wants to do, namely leaving the ECHR, getting tough on migration. And at the end of the day, who are voters going to believe on that? Are they going to believe Farage, who's been saying it for 15, 20 years, or are they going to believe Robert Jenrick? Right? I mean, it's a serious question. Labour, well, they've got a massive problem too, because I guarantee over the next few weeks and months now, Labour backbenchers are going to come out swinging. They're going to be attacking Starmer for being soft on immigration. They're going to say we need to reform the ECHR. They're going to say, we need to give the national inquiry on the rape gangs. You're going to see Blue Labour, that faction, really telling Keir Starmer to get real on all of these cultural issues. And he's going to have to get real, because he is now leading one of the most unpopular recently elected governments in British political history. If you just exclude Liz Truss for a minute, Labour's numbers are the worst of any new incoming government that I've seen in my lifetime, indeed I think in recent history. And ask yourself a question: where were all those senior Labour ministers at the by-election in Runcorn and Helsby? Nowhere to be seen. And this government isn't even 1 year old. It hasn't even got to the 1 year point of being in office. So the wheels are already coming off. Farage has got what he needs. The post-Brexit realignment is carrying on. Reform are inheriting that. Boris Johnson completely squandered that. Everything is up for play. The Red Wall is in play. Wales is in play. Huge elections there next year. This YouTube channel is going to keep tracking it all, because we've been ahead of the curve. And if you're not getting the emails at mattgoodwin.org, you really need to be, because we are constantly tracking, mapping, predicting, and getting this stuff right. Much of our content, by the way, is for free, so do sign up there. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hit like and subscribe. Hit that bell so you get our updates. But I think the earthquake, the people's revolution, has truly begun. I think it's going to become bigger than anybody in Westminster currently realizes. This country is going to start seeing some really big changes. We're going to be here to map it all. Bye-bye.